Hello and welcome everyone to the week ahead commodity report for the 15th to the 19th of April, presented by myself, Phil Carr, at the Gold and Silver Club. So this week, of course, we will be looking at gold, silver, crude oil and platinum prices for the week ahead. So first of all, we've seen over the last week hedge funds and money managers, they have actually now switched and increased their bullish wagers in COMEX gold in the latest week, as we've seen this pullback in gold prices, where the previous week we saw 1,280 US dollars retested just ahead of the non-farm payrolls. Now meanwhile, hedge funds and money managers, they have also raised their net long positions in US crude oil again in the latest week, after oil touched a 5-month high, with oil rising 1% on Friday as supply cuts from Venezuela and Iran plus the conflicts in Libya have helped to support oil prices. So with that, let's move over to the charts and we'll talk you through the opportunities and the trades that we're looking at as we head into next week. First of all, let's move over to Brent crude oil, and I want to highlight to you the percentage move that we've seen oil prices move so far in April. So you will remember, going back to the last couple of reports from the very start of the month, we had highlighted that typically oil's gain over the month of April is 5.7%. So if we have a look at what we're seeing right now with the percentage gain in April so far, oil is now up 5.8% for the month. So we've now actually hit target with the average percentage return you typically do see over the month of April. As I mentioned previously in reports, April is the strongest month of the year for oil. So it's not a month that you necessarily want to be selling short. You want to be going long and take advantage of pullbacks as buy opportunities. So that's really what we're looking at the moment. We are looking for the next pullbacks here to get back into this overall upward trend that we're seeing at the moment on oil. As I've mentioned numerous times before, we've continued to buy back into all of these dips. We took 200 points again the previous week from oil, from the breakout to the upside. Where we are at the moment, we mentioned last week that we were looking for a push higher up to $72 per barrel with Brent crude oil. You can see last week we came up to $71.85. So we have seen another breakout week, a break above the neckline here, a push higher. The next major zone of overhead resistance still resides around 72.42, but we do note that we have completed the normal percentage move here for oil, and we're only 2 weeks into April at the moment. So we may see some profit taking here in the coming days, and if we do, again, we're looking to be buyers of a pullback. I would be looking ideally for a move back towards that $70 US per barrel zone. If we have a look at this on the daily chart, the sweet spot at the moment, you've got $70 per barrel, and just below that is the 68.60 zone. If I actually zoom out on the chart here, I've mentioned this before, that with Brent crude oil in particular, that 21-day moving average region and also the midpoint of the Keltner channel does tend to be an optimal time to look for buying back into oil throughout this whole upward trend that we've seen so far in 2019. So oil prices, they are up over 30% this year. So really you want to take advantage of pullbacks as opportunities, in my opinion. If we do actually see a deeper pullback here on oil that takes the price all the way back down towards that previous major level of resistance turn support, potentially at the 68-67 zone, that's where I would see quite a good opportunity to then get back long for a potential seasonal play here as we then move into May and June, which are also tend to be quite strong months for oil prices. And then we start to dissipate in oil as we get towards the end of the year. That's normally where you start to see the rally tend to fizzle out. But certainly for the rest of April here, I would look at the potential for prices to consolidate. If they do pull back, I'm looking at evidence of support to buy back into oil, and you can see here we've essentially achieved now the average percentage move that oil does tend to deliver over the month of April. So I hope you've been able to capitalize on some of these breakouts that we've seen over this month so far. Now moving over to gold prices, there are a few points that you want to be aware of on gold as we go into next week and the price action that we've seen so far this week as well. One is that hedge funds and money managers, they have increased their net long positions. And I discussed this last week, that I suspected because of the support that we had seen at 1280, that we had seen hedge funds and money managers buy back into this dip. So that was around the non-farm payrolls. That was on the Thursday, on the Friday as well. So the previous week, hedge funds and money managers, they reduced their net long positions. And then last week, they increased them. So they essentially bought into this dip. Now, where we are at the moment, we're back at 1290. We actually hit our first profit target spot on last week on the FOMC statement at $1,310. For those of you who watched our midweek report, feel free to go back and watch that on YouTube. But essentially we discussed we were targeting that level of 1,310 US dollars per ounce ahead of the FOMC statement. But be careful on Thursday, because there's only been one Thursday so far in 2019 where the dollar has not rallied, and that was classic on Thursday, which would have caught a lot of traders off guard as well. Here you can see that dollar move where we'd seen a decline in the dollar leading right into the FOMC statement, and then on Thursday another typical rally for the US dollar. It's worthwhile being aware of that. Week to week we're tending to see that dollar strength come in on Thursday, so you want to be positioned correctly to take some profits off the table, which is what we did on gold here, hitting our profit target for 130 points profit, and then continued to trail up our stop loss and bank the remainder of the position once we started to roll over. And now what we're looking at here as we go into next week is the potential for the US dollar to continue to weaken in line with seasonality that you normally see in mid-April. The dollar tends to be at its strongest at the end of the month and the beginning of the month. Now gold here into the close on Friday, it does look a little bit vulnerable, but it is finding support at 1290. If we look back on the weekly chart here, we've also got a rejection candle that's formed on the weekly, and we've moved within that normal range of 200 points on gold. So we were looking at the range last week of 1290 up to 1310. So what I would look at next week, we've got a major zone here around 1290. It's whether the price springboards off that level going into the early part of next week. Gold is normally stronger around Tuesday and Wednesday each week, but we'll see if we do find some support at that level. If we don't, and we roll over, the next major level just below there, we've got two levels actually. You've got 1286, and then below that is 1280, which has seen a lot of buying come in at that zone. So if we were to see a break below the weekly lows, we may temporarily move back towards that level, but then I would see potential for buyers to come back in and drive the price higher. Essentially, gold is still a range-bound market at the moment. We are seeing buyers come in at support, and of course, we're seeing take profit around resistance. If we do see a typical percentage move over the month of April for gold, it would deliver a 1.3% return, which would see the price close around 1310 to 1315 by the end of the month. Obviously, the price right now is at 1,290 US dollars per ounce. The dollar does look very vulnerable to more downside as we go into next week, and I would look to take advantage of these normal cycles that we do see throughout the month of April. So from a technical point of view, if we break below the weekly lows here, we could be heading back towards that 1286, the 1280 zone. I would look for evidence of buyers coming back in at that level, and then I would look for a potential rotation within a range-bound market at the moment on gold for April, for a rotation back towards that 1300 and 1310 zone, and just taking advantage of those ranges that we're tending to see week to week on gold. Then moving over to silver. As we mentioned last week on silver, a very critical zone was that $14.90 level. The gold to silver ratio broke out to 86 to 1 last week, which is the highest level in 10 years, which would suggest at the moment gold is going to outperform silver until we see the gold to silver ratio turn around again, at which point silver could springboard quite fast to the upside. We've seen it previously. Once the gold silver ratio starts to pick up momentum to the downside and sell off, that is where of course silver can really start to pick up momentum. We mentioned last week as well, silver week to week tends to move within a 40 to 50 point range, and we did see that range also achieved on silver last week. Platinum, we mentioned last week that we would look for pullbacks as buy opportunities here. So if we were to get a further pullback back towards this major level of resistance, which could then turn into support around that 870 level, we would look for evidence of support coming in and look for trade opportunities around that level. So we have definitely seen some profit taking last week, which is not a big surprise because the previous week platinum broke out 6% to the upside. Platinum is now up still over April, 4.6%. It has been leading the metals, and you can see where it made an attempt to break out back towards the next major layer of resistance here, up above that $910 level, but it's just come into some resistance. Pull back here, which if we break back below the weekly lows here, I would look for a retest back towards that 875 zone. But platinum has certainly been leading the way so far over the month of April, and I suspect the pullbacks here might be shallow, just given that overall this month tends to be quite supportive, but we probably will see a little bit more profit taking if we do break back below the weekly lows. So hopefully you can see some of the opportunities that we've had already over April so far. It's been an incredible month so far for oil, and gold has been great just to trade these ranges. Of course, if you would like to join us at the Gold and Silver Club and take advantage of these opportunities, and you would like to join a community of successful traders, you are very welcome to do so. As a member of the Gold and Silver Club, you get access to the following. You have exclusive live trading room webinars hosted throughout the week. You get access to our real-time trade alerts and trade management, as well as trading research, market insights, access to our private Members Academy website with your own individual logins, as well as support and one-to-one mentoring. For more information about the service, just go to www.jointhelivetradingroom.com. The link is also below this report in the description. So just click on the link, make an application, and we will of course get in touch with you ASAP. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you're kept updated with all of the latest commodity reports.